Welcome to Patriots 4th and 2, the official podcast of PatsFans.com.
And hello again, everyone. Welcome to Patriots 4th and 2. I'm Steve Balistrieri. Joining me is Derek Havens. Russ Goldman, unfortunately, like Willie Nelson, is on the road again. He won't join us this morning, but he will be here with us later in the week when we do another podcast to preview the Miami Dolphins game. But Derek and I are going to break down as best we can without Russ the Patriots' victory over the Minnesota Vikings. And Derek, let's jump right in. What's your opening thoughts on how the Patriots played in what was a very big game on Sunday night?
I thought it was awesome. I thought it was a great game all around. I'm not sure really how you felt about it, but I thought this was the best the defense has looked the entire season in terms of guys making tackles and really not allowing any yards after the catch. I thought that the coverage was excellent, and special teams were pretty good. I understand that Gostkowski missed a 48-yard field goal, which I thought he should have had. Obviously, Dan Bailey probably felt the same way. Offensively, I've actually heard some criticism of the offense. I understand. You look at the statistics. The Patriots put almost 500 yards on that Minnesota Vikings defense. I understand 24 points is probably not what people were hoping for. But I think you have to almost marginalize the yards, I use that word in a specific way because I know how much our friend Russ loves to marginalize certain things. But just how you would marginalize something, like the Jets game the week before, sometimes you have to do it the opposite way. And you're going up against a team in Minnesota that is the best on third down defensively and the best in the red zone. Not to mention a top 5 defense in running and passing. They are a legit group that, even though they've disappointed a little bit going into the year, they've really put themselves in good position to be in contention again for the NFC. And they came, and you knew it was going to be a tough game, and I think you put together your best complete performance of the season.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, defensively, and we're in lockstep there because I thought this was the best game they've played defensively in quite a long time. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head because I believe the secondary is always competitive. And, the secondary gets a lot of grief, but those guys have faced a lot of really good wide receivers, and every week they seem to, bring their best out there. The one issue I think we all agree has been, covering running backs and tight ends. And, in this game, the Patriots mixed things up. They confused Cousins a lot with the looks they showed him. They used all 4 of their safeties. They were bringing those guys down into the box a lot. They were moving them around, and they were forcing them to throw those short passes. And like you said, they were tackling guys no yards after the catch. Dalvin Cook, who we talked about this last week, he was kind of a guy we were worried about making a big impact in the passing game, and he caught 8 passes for 22 yards. Latavius Murray, 2 catches for 3 yards. So I think, Kyle Rudolph had a couple of nice plays, but, overall, I thought this was a really, really good look for the defense, and especially the way they were moving people around. They were playing what I thought was the best game the linebackers had played by far all year long. They were flying around the field. The linebackers didn't look slow and out of step, this week. And I just thought, the fronts, they were showing the muddle fronts, I guess they call it, with Trey Flowers at times being the only down lineman. I just thought it was a really, really well executed game plan.
It was a good game plan. The coaches deserve a lot of credit for this. And I think that you totally nailed that when you talk about the muddled fronts, the linebacker play, defensively. I mean, everything was good. I thought this was the first game all season, Steve, that you saw. Not, I mean, we've seen Trey Flowers be phenomenal all year, but we saw Donta Hightower make plays. Donta finally looked like the number 54 that we're accustomed to seeing. You know, Devin McCourty was making plays. I thought that was huge. I thought the game plan of having defensive backs covering the running backs out of the backfield and not letting their linebackers be exposed by the explosiveness of Minnesota's backs in Cook and Murray, I thought that was a great decision. Mixing things up defensively in the front to confuse Kirk Cousins, that was a unique wrinkle. Everything about this defensive game plan was I very impressive, and they put guys in positions to exceed. And not only that, I would also say it wasn't just the game plan; it was also the effort by the players. Guys were flying to the ball. It just looked like a different, more energized unit. I mean, it just seemed like it was a different. It was like they had something to play for, and I think that's a good sign. You know, you're in December now. The Patriots have been a ridiculous. They're now 34-4 at home since Belichick took over in December. I mean, they have dominated the month of December down the stretch, especially at home, and this is a big statement to make against a very good team.
Absolutely, we talked about that, and the defense. We kind of thought this was going to be a better defense than we've been seeing all year long, for the most part. I mean, they've had a couple of good games, but the last two games, I think you can really see where it's starting to come together. And if their pass rush still isn't great with just the front four, but they're scheming things around that. And I thought they brought good pressure on Kirk all game long, and with the coverage, as Belichick loves to say, coverage and pass rush go hand in hand. And when the coverage was good, and they weren't allowing him to look down the field, they were doing a really good job of seaming things off, tackling the guys with no yards after the catch. And, he was completing passes on third down, but they were all way in front of the sticks where, it might be 3rd and 7 and they were completing a pass for 4 yards and the guy gets tackled. I mean, that's just great defense. And I thought, yeah, as you said, the coaches deserve a lot of credit for that. But one thing.
I mean, you know that they're going to try to, that Belichick's going to try to take away what the Vikings do best. And what the Vikings have is a ton of explosive talent. We talked ad nauseum last week. How are they going to defend Adam Thielen, Stephon Diggs, Kyle Rudolph, Dalvin Cook? Well, Adam Thielen had 28 yards and a touchdown, which Belichick, I thought, interestingly enough, said they gave to him on accident. It was a busted coverage. He was mad. He was mad they even gave up the touchdown. He goes, we basically the cornerbacks basically give each other, rubbed each other, meaning like they basically picked each other and got in each other's way. And he said it was a defensive breakdown, and it wasn't even anything really Thielen did, which is true. It was a good play by Thielen, obviously good throw by Cousins. But at the end of the day, they kind of got in their own way. And, Stephon Diggs, if you had told me Stephon Diggs was going to have under 50 yards, Thielen was going to have under 50 yards, I would have told you there's no chance in hell. They had one touchdown and 77 yards between them. I can't believe it. And that goes back again to the game plan. And I thought that Stephon Gilmore continues to play very well. Jason McCourty had a good game, but they can't do it just those guys by themselves. It really was a team, a unit, defensive performance. It was just very impressive. But the Diggs and Thielen statistics and production coming out of that game, to me, was the biggest story on that side. It was that to me is not, you can't bury that with fluke or narrative. that to me is one of those things that really stands out.
Absolutely. And, one of the things I took away from was I think Belichick and Brian Flores, Flores is very much more aggressive than, his predecessor was. I think we saw that. And even after they got burnt just before the half, where they were blitzing, and, the Vikings did a really good job of adjusting to it, and they went down, and when they scored their only touchdown, they didn't shy away from it. They didn't back away. They stuck with the game plan, and they gave up 3 points in the second half. But the one thing that I took away from, they have a lot of confidence in J.C. Jackson, because when the Vikings were trying to find a spot for Thielen to, get some open space, and they moved him into the slot, they moved Jason McCourty with him into the slot, and then they moved J.C. Jackson out on the perimeter. And I thought that showed a lot of confidence in the guy. And the Vikings, you give them credit. They see an undrafted rookie in there. They went right after him, and they tested him deep 3 times. And, knock on wood, the kid held up all 3 times. I
Well,
thought he played
the thing with
really
J.C.
well.
Jackson, I agree with you. The thing with J.C. Jackson is he's a physical guy. He wants to put his hands on you. He has great technique. That's what they loved about him so much over the summer. But, there's a double-edged sword there. Sometimes you are going to get called for, flags when you play that way. And I think for the most part, the referees let them play, which was a big or a big favor to the Patriots in this one. Even if the refs were going to be kind of calling some tic-tac calls, it's one of those things where if you're going to play physical, you can't call it every single time. And I think that J.C. Jackson had a little bit of that Ty Law in him, where he's going to put his hands on you. He's going to try to disrupt you. He wants to make you uncomfortable. And he was in the shirt of his, his guy all game long. They moved him around. They mostly had him outside, like you said. And that did show a lot of confidence in him. And that was a big part of the game plan as well. He had his best game of the season, and it couldn't have come at a better time.
Hey, let's switch it over to the offense. I know you touched on this right at the beginning of the show, and Minnesota had the number 3 defense coming in. They're number 1 in the red zone. They were number 1 on third down. The Patriots were, I think they were 50%, 7 of 14 on third down. They were 2 or 3 in the red zone, and both of those numbers could have been inflated. There was one really close play down, excuse me, on the goal line with Julian Edelman that could have went either way. Again, a very physical play, and the guy timed it really close. It looked like he got there a little early, but in real time, that's tough to see for the officials. But the offense, I thought, was very, and again, give credit to the coaches. They came out, they did a lot of quick screens, quick passes, misdirection plays in the running game. They really put Minnesota on their heels to start the game. It was a great start for the offense, which has been an issue this year.
Well, I agree with you there. The coaching staff on both sides of the ball, really every phase, deserves a ton of credit. And offensively, I love what they came up with. The only play that I know a lot of people were upset with was the direct snap to James White on that 3rd and 1, middle of the game. But that's one of those things, Steve, that I chalk up to. It's brilliant if it's converted, and it's stupid if it's not. I would have liked them. I would have liked them to just run an ISO formation up the gut. But see, the thing is, the Patriots knew how physical Minnesota was, and I don't think the James Devlin up the middle was by it wasn't just one of those things that just let's just try to be niche and cute here. I think they wanted to take their fullback and punch it in. It wasn't an indictment on Sony Michel. It wasn't an indictment on James White or Rex Burkhead. I think they were trying to match power with power, and they took their Pro Bowl fullback and threw him down the middle a couple of times. And I think that was just kind of the old school way that Belichick wanted to play. And it was a rock fight. And I think it showed a lot more toughness. I know some people want to turn it around and spin it the other way. I disagree. But I really like the game plan and the design of the offensive plays. Rex Burkhead, I think, showed that he can add a wrinkle to this offense. The Patriots brought back their kind of Pony Express offensive package. If you recall, the two running backs in the back end, two running backs in the backfield. I thought they used a lot, especially to start the drive. Brilliant sequence by McDaniels. We know how scripted the offense is to start games, and it was really nicely done. They were constantly putting the Vikings in bad position, misdirection and crossing plays, and I thought that the Patriots used a lot of follow concepts with the backs. So Brady would be in shotgun, and a running back would be to either side, and if the play was to the right, the running back on the right would kind of flow out to the flat to the right side and kind of move up. And, the receivers on the right side would kind of move up and clear out the secondary. And then the guy to Tom Brady's left would come across behind the offensive line, and he'd have a ton of space, and Brady could get on the ball, and it almost worked like a screen pass. And you saw that happen a ton with both White and Burkhead, and then you even saw them getting Cordero Patterson involved too. They were attacking that space of the field, and the game plan was predicated on getting yards after the catch, which is pretty ironic considering on the flip side of the ball, like we mentioned already, how strong they were in tackling and not allowing yards after the catch for Minnesota.
Absolutely, and you mentioned it, Cordell Patterson. I mean, I thought the Patriots, they used what other teams have been using against them, and they attacked them with speed this week. Patterson, he had, I think it was 114 combined yards. He had like 6 yards rushing, 53 yards receiving on 2 catches, and then 55 more in the return game. Him and James White, again, James White, he had 92 yards on 7 catches and then 26 more in the running game. I thought that they had a really good game plan. They got everybody involved this week. I think everyone touched the ball except Philip Dorsett this week. But, I mean, Brady was spreading the ball around. Yeah, they could have scored some more points, but Minnesota was the number 3 defense in the NFL. And they're a good defense, and I think they were 4th against the run and 5th against the pass, or vice versa. You roll up 471 yards and 160 on the ground. I mean, no one saw that coming. But they used their speed, they used misdirection. I thought it was a tremendous game plan, and I thought it was a really good quality win this week.
Oh, absolutely, it was. And when we knew when this schedule came out, several months ago, that this was going to be one of the toughest games of the year. And look, I mean, you're in a very serious conference battle right now for the 1 and 2 seed. There are a lot of teams that are playing very well. Kansas City has a 1-game lead on you. You have the tiebreaker, and I think there's a chance they lose one game because they have a pretty tough schedule. But you're going to have to win out, and you still have at Miami, at Pittsburgh, 2 divisional games in addition to those 2 games. You have the Chargers playing well, but luckily they're playing the same division as Kansas City. And you have the Texans, who are really surging. I think they've won 8 games in a row now, if I'm not mistaken. So you have a lot of different hurdles if you want to get that bye, which I think is critical for this team. And I know we can talk about that later in the week with Russ as well. But this was a very big win, and Steve, like I said, I think this was the Patriots' most complete team performance of the season, and I think having it in one of their bigger games in December, I think sets a tone for the rest of the season.
Absolutely. I mean, and I still have the feeling, I could be wrong, that they're playing this offense a little close to their vest. I mean, we saw them. I mean, they didn't really get Josh Gordon involved until late in the 3rd quarter. they didn't attack down the field until then. And then once he got involved, he had like 3 big plays within about, I don't know, 7 or 8 snaps. He had 2 big catches, one for a touchdown, and then he had a pass interference call. I still think they're playing their cards a little close to their vest. I know people saying they haven't figured it out yet. I kind of.
It's so funny because I've heard so many people talk about how not getting Gordon involved early was a negative thing. I don't think it was what they were hoping to do. They were clearly trying to attack other ways, and when they went to Gordon, they had success. I mean,
yep.
we talked about this when they added Gordon. I mean, you and Russ were, specifically you two, were adamant that you didn't want the offense focused on Gordon like he was like the main cog, and I agreed. And Gordon, and we've seen at times Brady forced to Gordon when he's been frustrated and just kind of throw it in there, just like hoping for him to make a play. They went for their game plan. They had something in mind. They executed it well. And then when they were trying to open up other avenues, they went to Gordon and he had some success. It's amazing how some people try to spin that into a negative. To me, I look at it as a big positive, that he was there for you when you needed him. And, he's been relatively reliable since he's been here. Now, I don't really trust him still, like with all the issues we've talked about in the past, but he has been, for the most part, a very good soldier since he's been here. And I think the progress in the offense that he's made has been something that's been incredibly important.
Absolutely. I know you have to go because we all have things to do today. But yeah, we could talk.
I do have to go. Yep.
Yeah, we could talk for hours about this, but we want to thank everyone for listening. Unfortunately, like we said, Russ couldn't be here today. We wanted to do a quick, recap and analysis of the Vikings game, and then we will be back later this week with Russ, and we're going to do a breakdown of the Miami Dolphins game coming up. First hat and T-shirt game of the season.